Kenneth Porter checked his reflection one last time before entering the restaurant. 61. Silver hair, perfectly styled, expensive suit, successful tech company. On paper, he was quite the catch. In reality, he was exhausted by the whole charade. This blind date was his business partner's idea. "You need someone, Ken. The company's sold. You're retiring next year. What are you going to do, sit alone in that big house?" The woman was already seated when he arrived. Mid-20s, he guessed. Pretty in a nervous way. She wore too much makeup, like she was trying to be someone she wasn't. Her dress looked new, tags probably cut off that morning. She stood when she saw him, and he caught the flicker of disappointment in her eyes. He was older than she'd expected. Much older. "Mr. Porter," she said. "I'm Jessica. Kenneth, please. Shall we sit?" The dinner was painful from the start. Jessica tried too hard, laughing at things that weren't funny, asking questions that felt rehearsed. Kenneth recognized the signs. Someone had coached her, probably told her how to act around a wealthy man. Halfway through the appetizers, his phone rang. His business partner, Leo. "How's it going?" Leo asked loudly enough that Jessica could hear. "Fine," Kenneth said tersely. "She's perfect for you, right? Young, beautiful. Think of it as a retirement gift to yourself." Kenneth felt his stomach turn. He ended the call quickly, but the damage was done. Jessica had heard. Her face had gone white. "I'm sorry," she said, standing abruptly. "I need to use the restroom." She grabbed her purse and practically ran. Kenneth sat there, feeling like the worst kind of fool. Young, beautiful retirement gift. As if people were commodities. As if this poor girl was supposed to be his prize for a lifetime of work. He should have known. Leo had been talking like this for months, making crude jokes about Kenneth's upcoming freedom to date younger women. Kenneth had laughed it off, not wanting to seem uptight. But this crossed a line. He waited 5 minutes, then 10. Jessica didn't return. The waiter approached. "Sir, the young lady left through the back exit." Kenneth paid the bill and walked out into the parking lot. Rain had started, light but steady. He should go home, forget this whole embarrassing evening. But something made him look around. That's when he saw her. Jessica sat in the alley behind the restaurant, completely soaked, surrounded by 3 scraggly dogs. She'd opened a container of leftover bread from somewhere, and was breaking it into pieces, offering it to the animals with gentle hands. She was crying, tears mixing with rain on her face. Kenneth approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "Jessica?" She looked up, startled. I'm sorry, I ran out. I just couldn't do it anymore." "Do what?" "Pretend," she said, her voice breaking. "My roommate set this up. She said you were rich and lonely and I should be nice to you. That maybe you'd help me with my student loans or get me a job. I felt sick the whole time. I'm not that person. I can't be that person." She gestured at the dogs. "I saw them on my way out, cold and hungry, and I just thought, at least I can do something genuine, something real, even if it's just feeding some strays." Kenneth knelt down in the rain beside her, expensive suit be damned. One of the dogs, a small terrier mix, approached him cautiously. "I had a dog like this," he said quietly, "growing up. We weren't wealthy then. My dad worked construction. Mom cleaned houses. Charlie was a stray we found behind our apartment. Skinny and scared, but he became the best friend I ever had." Jessica watched him, surprised. "He slept at the foot of my bed every night for 12 years, Kenneth continued, stroking the small dog's head. "When he died, I was 23. I cried for days. Haven't had a dog since. Told myself I was too busy traveling too much for work. But really, I think I was just afraid to care that much again." "That's sad," Jessica said softly. "It is," Kenneth agreed. "I built a successful company, made more money than I know what to do with. But I never let myself care about anything the way I cared about that dog. Safer that way." They sat in silence, rain falling around them, feeding the dogs the rest of the bread. "I'm 26, Jessica finally said. "I work at a veterinary clinic. I make barely enough to cover rent and student loans. I went on this date because my roommate convinced me it was a good opportunity. But sitting across from you, lying about my interests, pretending to be impressed by things I don't understand, I felt like I was betraying myself." "You were," Kenneth said, "and I was betraying myself by going along with it. My business partner set this up like I was some lonely old man who needed a pretty young thing to make me feel important. It's insulting to both of us. Jessica smiled slightly. We're quite a pair, aren't we? We are, Kenneth agreed. He stood, offering her his hand. Come on, you're soaked. Let me at least drive you home. What about them? Jessica gestured to the dogs. Kenneth looked at the three animals, thin and shivering in the rain. He thought about Charlie. About the boy he'd been who would have done anything to help a creature in need. Wait here, he said. He went back into the restaurant, spoke to the manager, made some calls. 20 minutes later, a van from the local animal shelter arrived. They'll be taken care of, Kenneth told Jessica as they watched the dogs being loaded gently into the van. No kill shelter. I'll make sure they get adopted into good homes. I'll cover all the medical costs and adoption fees. Jessica stared at him. Why would you do that? Because you cared enough to sit in the rain and feed them, Kenneth said simply. That matters more than anything that happened in that restaurant. In his car, he turned the heat up high. Jessica shivered in her wet dress. I'm sorry about your friend, she said. Leo, was it? He sounds like a jerk. Kenneth laughed. He is. Has been for 40 years. But he's also been my partner through everything. He means well, in his backwards way. He just doesn't understand that I don't want a trophy. I want a companion, someone real. Have you told him that? Not in so many words. Maybe I should. He drove her home to a modest apartment complex. Before she got out, she turned to him. Thank you for the dogs, and for not being angry that I ran out. Thank you for being honest, Kenneth replied. That's rarer than you'd think. Can I ask you something? Jessica said. Why don't you get another dog? If Charlie meant that much to you. Kenneth was quiet. I don't know. Fear, I suppose. Of loss. Of caring. That's a lonely way to live, Jessica said gently. It is, Kenneth admitted. She opened the door, then paused. If you ever do decide to get a dog, come by the clinic. Riverside Veterinary. We always have rescues that need homes. I promise I won't try to date you or ask for money. Just help you find a good friend. Kenneth smiled. I might take you up on that. 2 weeks later, Kenneth walked into Riverside Veterinary. Jessica looked up from the reception desk, surprised. You came. I came, he confirmed. I've been thinking about what you said, about living a lonely life, about being afraid to care. I'm 61 years old. I've been afraid long enough. Jessica led him to the back, where a dozen dogs waited in kennels. One caught his eye immediately. A terrier mix, small and scruffy, with the same intelligent eyes Charlie had possessed. That's Max, Jessica said. He's 8. Owner passed away. He's been here 2 months. Most people want puppies. Kenneth opened the kennel. Max approached cautiously, then licked his hand. I'll take him, Kenneth said that afternoon he brought Max home. The big empty house suddenly felt less empty. A month later, he called Jessica. I wanted to say thank you. Max has changed everything. I take him for walks every morning. I've met my neighbors for the first time in 10 years. I'm not working 16-hour days because I need to get home to feed him. You were right. I was living a lonely life. I'm glad, Jessica said warmly. Would you like to have coffee sometime? Kenneth asked. Not a date, just friends. You gave me something valuable. I'd like to return the favor if I can. What could you possibly give me? Advice on those student loans. I've made a career out of financial planning. Let me help. Friend to friend. Jessica was quiet. All right. Coffee. As friends. They met monthly after that. Jessica brought Max updates from the clinic. Kenneth helped her create a plan to tackle her debt. They talked about life, loss, starting over. On Max's first adoption anniversary, Jessica brought a cake to Kenneth's house one year with your best friend, she said, lighting a candle. Best friends, Kenneth corrected, looking at her. Plural. I found 2 that day in the rain. Sometimes the worst dates lead to the best friendships. Sometimes running away brings you exactly where you need to be. Sometimes caring is worth the risk of loss. If this story warmed your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment about an unexpected friendship that changed your life. The best connections often happen when we stop pretending and start being real.